So I love my fantasy and I love my science fiction. This time, let's step into some history. Welcome back to the library again, readers and rapscallions. Ian is back, and today I'm going to be talking about I, Claudius by Robert Graves. I just finished this book like yesterday, I think, and this is one of my first forays into historical fiction, and it was a good time. It's the book is written in the 30s, so it's almost 100 years old, and that definitely shows. But I absolutely love the time period, and it was just kind of great to get lost in ancient Rome for a little bit. So, for those who don't know, Claudius was the fourth emperor of Rome. So you got Augustus, you got Tiberius, and then Caligula, and then Claudius, and after him was Nero. And this is kind of the setting in which the story takes place. So the whole story is written as a framing narrative, which I like. It just seems to be a kind of story that agrees with me. And it's written as if it were an autobiography Claudius is writing kind of for posterity, which helps make it readable. Graves consulted the primary sources like Livy and Tacitus when he was putting this together, but I, Claudius reads a lot more like an actual novel. It kind of feels more like it was written in maybe the 50s or 60s, but still has a little bit of that older style of book. It's not so much about Claudius as emperor. He becomes emperor at the very end of the book. It's mostly about the reigns of Augustus, his grandfather, and Tiberius and Caligula, and kind of the world that those men ruled over. So Augustus being the first emperor of Rome, a lot of it is him consolidating and securing power. He was the longest reigning of the Roman emperors, and the story goes that he found Rome as a city of mud and left it as a city of marble. And then there's also like underlying tension because people aren't quite sure how this whole empire thing is going to work out yet. You get a lot of the paranoia that comes in when Tiberius becomes emperor, and then the backstabbing crazy stuff that happens when Caligula becomes emperor. And overall, you can definitely see how this would influence George R. R. Martin. He's said that this is one of his favorite books, and you do get a little bit of that Song of Ice and Fire stuff in there. So it has that core intrigue, but it's not like it's only the backstabbing politics. A lot of it does kind of just read like a history. So despite being more fresh than consulting primary sources, it does read a little bit on the dry side. Putting that aside, though, the real standout is Claudius himself, which kind of makes sense because the story is about him. So Claudius was the first emperor of Rome, not born in Rome. He's born in what is now Germany. And he isn't anybody that you would expect to be emperor. He had a stammer. He had a limp. I guess he like drooled a little bit. He was kind of thought of as an invalid almost by his family. Like he really wasn't taken seriously despite being brilliant and being a scholar. You get a lot of great scenes with his tutor when he's kind of basically trying to figure out why everyone treats him so horribly, and he's kind of told like let yourself be a background extra and don't draw attention to yourself because this empire thing is a dangerous new place, and if you present yourself as somebody who could rise up, then you're somebody who could also be a challenger. But it makes Claudius into an even more interesting character because you think about ancient Rome, right? You got the tall, ripped, buff guys. That's a society of alpha males, basically, and society of type A's. And Claudius, also with his birthplace, is a person who becomes a Roman emperor despite being someone who is decidedly un-Roman. And that's just like a fascinating episode of history when you think about it that way. So overall, I'd probably give it like a 3.5 stars. And I know that to some people that sounds like it's not a good rating. In my mind, 3 stars is something that I would recommend to somebody, and if they ask me about it, I'd say yeah, it's a good book. 4 stars is something I go out of my way to say, hey, this is good and you should read it, and 5 stars is like classic slash eternal staying power slash life changing. So 3.5 stars is a good rating. It did lose me a little bit. It does kind of drag. and it's not. It's definitely not a political thriller, although there is some overlap with it. So I would put this out to somebody, definitely people who have interest in the time period. Maybe people who have, or especially people who have a bit of a background in history. And it would also be, in addition to the political intrigue, it would also be a good thing to read for people who just kind of want to learn more about the time period, as long as you understand that it's not a textbook, it's a historical fiction, and there is a lot of that extra color that's in there, that might have questionable historicity sprinkled in throughout the proper stuff that really did happen. But overall, yeah, I had a good time reading on Claudius. I'm definitely gonna read Claudius the God, the sequel, at some point. That's the one where it covers his reign as emperor, and I'm pretty excited for that. It's gonna be a little while, but I'll get to it at some point. All right, that'll do it for this episode in the library, guys. Let me know in the comments if you've read I Claudius, or if Claudius the God is, worth a good read. Don't forget to subscribe. We'll see you next time.